My guest today is someone I connected with first on social media and very quickly realized that we were running on parallel tracks without knowing it. She's the founder of Firestarter, a multi seven figure brand strategy agency, the host of the Firestarter podcast, and one of the most clear eyed thinkers that I know on what it actually means to build a brand that lasts. But I'm not going to read her bio to you. I want you to hear her tell you her story. I was recently her guest on her podcast, Firestarter, where she asked me all the questions, and today I get to ask her. Welcome, Willa, to the Inner Design. So, Willa, thank you. I'm so happy to have you here on the Inner Design podcast.
So great to be here. Thank you, Rubina.
Yeah, you and I met in such an organic way, and I always pay attention to those kind of connections because I think they usually mean something deeper is at play. We both had our conversations publicly, and today I really want people to meet the you behind the business lens, the success, and all the things like your journey. So tell me a version of how, maybe we'll start with how a version of how we found each other, because I think it says a lot about timing, alignment, and how real relationships happen.
Sure. I feel like the first connection was on Instagram, and I'm such a big believer also in just like following those alignments and not looking at it as entirely chance, but kind of people who come into our path as they're meant to, and that those divine alignments or whatever you want to call them aren't by accident. So yeah, it was wonderful. We, I believe, connected on Instagram was the first place, and it was just this rabbit hole of discovering. I think first I saw your film poster from the Women in Power series with Inside Success, and I'm also one of the featured stories as part of that series, and so we quickly started swapping stories on Instagram DMs, about what was your experience like filming, what was, tell me all that. I don't know that I had filmed yet, so I wanted all of your details, about what that experience was like. But then pretty quickly we also realized, we had a couple of other connections in common, and so I feel like it's just that we were on these parallel paths, and then a couple of months later that we actually had the chance, because we were already planning to travel there, to actually meet in Miami about a month ago. So it was just wonderful to be able to be in the same place in person pretty soon after that.
Sometimes I think that the right people don't arrive through strategy. They arrive in this resonance that you and I have. And you're known for helping brands grow. And I'm also curious about like the inner life of you as the person doing that kind of guiding. Like, what has your own personal evolution required of you these last few years?
Sure. I think that, personal life experience is often the best teacher, and how we're able to, best support the people that we support in our work. And I think so often our own experience is really what shapes our methodology and the way that we're able to support our clients. So for me, alignment is a huge core theme also of my work, and this resonance between what's on the inside and what's on the outside. But it's not from this place of having always felt like that. A lot of what I try to live and embody, and just the continual journey that I am on today, of just always trying to step towards that deeper alignment and just check myself, does this feel aligned, 20 times a day? It's because there was a time in my life where I felt really misaligned. I had built a business that was successful. The roots of our company today, Firestarter Interactive, a production company serving clients in the education impact space. We were doing really great, meaningful work, and it's a company that I built from zero. I've been an entrepreneur my whole career, 15 plus years. And so it was built out of this place of deep alignment and bringing something to life, as we do in entrepreneurship, bringing something to life from nothing. Yet I found myself successful by all measures on the outside in that business, and feeling myself when I was out there in the public eye and running my business. But then when I went home in my marriage, I felt like a shadow of myself. And so I was living this really double identity that was I felt very alienated from myself, disconnected, and not really happy with who I was, or looking forward in life and looking at my life as it was unfolding. It felt pretty gray and bleak. And for someone who has always been pretty buoyant and had that buoyancy as really part of my being and personality and just how I show up in the world, again, it was just very disconnecting and destabilizing. And so I had to go through a really personal, hard, grueling journey when my son was, 5 months old, 6 months old, 8 months old, ultimately deciding when he was 8 months old that I needed to get a divorce. I needed to leave this marriage that, wasn't serving me. And it's fascinating how much of a 180 that felt like. It was just in a snap, it felt like I got my life back, I had this sense back of my path and possibility, and my life was unfolding again before me in a way that I just felt very connected to, and I just felt exhilarating. And of course there was a lot of rebuilding and the logistics of rebuilding a life, which is no small feat, yet at the same time, even though there was so much unknown, it felt so much less scary than this known that I just felt so disconnected from and so alienating from the core of who I knew myself to be. So long story short, through experiencing intensely what it felt like to not be aligned, I then made it my mission to really follow and continue to follow alignment in my own life, and then ultimately brought that much more deeply into our client work. We continue to support institutions, businesses, brands, kind of in the more B2B space, but we really grew new pillars of our business supporting people looking to make a bigger impact through their personal work, helping them establish and build their personal brands, and really look at branding from this place of inside out alignment, resonance between who they are and what they care about on the inside, and building a brand and whole business structure that really reflects that on the outside.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just queued up exactly where I was going with this. It's just that whole rebuilding journey. And I know I'm asking you this question of like more than who you had to become, like what did you really have to become, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I think you've spoken a lot about rebuilding the parts of your life, but also from the outside, it shows me, and I think everyone who's been watching you and seeing you on your journey, that you've been showing up really powerfully. And I think a lot of women know what it feels like to keep functioning while they're carrying all this privately. But what was that kind of season really like for you from that internal part of it?
Yeah, so I realized, I mentioned I had Firestarter Interactive, this, successful company working with some big name clients like Harvard and Barnard and Aloha. And, we had really good, I traveled around the world and country with that work, and had a good run with it. But I started feeling like I had more to say, having lived what I went through, and that journey of coming back to myself and having a young son and navigating all of it. I felt like it was not going to be satisfying to me to spend the rest of my days in Zoom meetings doing meaningful work for clients, but ultimately spending my days building their dreams versus building my own. And so I started exploring what that looked like to begin stepping more deeply into sharing my story, integrating that with my work and business life as well. And I'll admit, it was a pretty messy couple of years of, and very expensive, investing in a lot of mentorship, coaching, and really exploring what my place in the online world was. It was also pretty humbling because having had a business and web presence, like having had a website since probably 2008, and being very familiar with online and branding and everything like that, the whole personal brand space was a whole new beast and world to figure out. It felt like I was in a foreign country learning about, I was like, where was I in 2021 and 2020, 2021, learning about, online courses and speaking and the funnels, and all of it was new to me. But I really went all in and really immersed myself and invested in a lot of courses, coaching, mentorship, all of it. And I always say to our clients that when you're building something online, because of the nature of it, of building a personal online, you kind of have to do it publicly, right? So it was a period of trying different pathways to try to find my footing, to find my lane. I originally did feel like I had to assimilate what I had been living internally with what I now, like where I had landed. So this story, this journey of my divorce, after bottling so much up inside, I felt compelled to share it, not in this expose way, but with the hope that perhaps my story might be able to lend a little bit of perspective and comfort to someone else, maybe walking a similar journey, trying to come back to alignment with themselves, whether personally, professionally. And I kind of my first foray, you're really taking my personal brand seriously, was sharing that on Instagram, going pretty viral a number of times. And it was amazing the people that I connected with through that. And I think that started to show me the power of the online space, and really sharing it with a level of vulnerability and openness, and the desire to connect and authenticity and all of it. I ultimately realized that that was not where I wanted to stay. I'm a very open book, so of course my whole story, I bring my whole story and my whole self into everything that I do. But I realized I'm not a therapist. I'm not, I don't want to be a divorce coach. That wasn't, I got out what I needed to, but that wasn't where I wanted to stay. But it did teach me a lot, and it made me realize that actually, my passion is entrepreneurship. It's been my whole career. It's honestly what gave me the freedom and flexibility to step out of my marriage immediately when I felt like I needed to. I had become the breadwinner in our marriage very fully. And so I was fully supporting us, and I knew exactly what it took to support us. And so because of my business, I had the freedom and flexibility to do that. And that only deepened my conviction in the power of entrepreneurship, especially for women, but we also serve men as well, and we love our male clients as well. But entrepreneurship is just such an opportunity to chart your own path in life and have a vision, and then reverse engineer the business and the brand and everything to bring that to life. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to do that in my professional career. And so now, the focus is really on supporting other people to be able to do that. But I would say it was a messy, vulnerable couple of years after having achieved some kind of stability and traction in business, to kind of go back to the beginning and roots and say, I'm a beginner, in this new area that I'm establishing in and still trying to figure things out. And the nature of the online space is you kind of have to practice in public, which is what I tell our clients all the time. But I will say that through that, I'm a big believer in that kind of learning through action, practicing in public, and just iterating, putting yourself out there. And through that process, that's what breeds clarity. That's what creates clarity, feeling into where you're meant to land. And of course, as I'm sure you will relate, alignment is a continual journey. It's not a destination. It's one that every single day, it might go like this, but you're still kind of steering yourself towards that kind of central path that feels right.
Yes, absolutely. It takes a lot of presence. And I really appreciate you sharing here what a lot of people might not see in your journey. And, I always say that success, or conversations about success, often leave the body out. But I'm hearing some of that parts with you, like where you became aware and you just knew that certain things didn't feel right in your gut. Or, of course, I will align it to the nervous system, like during that chapter of your life. And, just tracking it back to maybe being in different clarity, collapse, or maybe determination or survival mode, all of that journey, like hearing you talk about it, because I think our body always knows before our mind admits it. So I really hear that in your story. And I think I'm really fascinated by the whole process. And to me, I'll ask it this way, because I think that, we all live, our life is completely by process, but it's measured by productivity, and outcome. And so, then I have the principle also that creativity is something we all have access to. So what does creating look like for you, maybe right now in this present moment?
Sure. And I will just kind of, I would be remiss to not touch on the thread that you mentioned before, just like the kind of feelings in the body around alignment. And if I walk back, to getting myself into, that marriage that was misaligned, I knew in my body from the very first meeting that it was not for me, but I willed myself, with my head. But I didn't that's not how I interpreted it at the time, right? I know now, reflecting back on how I felt, that had I known what I know now, I would have made some different decisions. But it is just so interesting how our bodies truly do have the ability to discern, what's for
Yeah.
us and what's not for us. And zero regrets, I have a beautiful son out of it. And I am a big believer
Yes.
in just like everything happens for a reason in its time. And, I grew in many ways through those years, and I wouldn't trade any of it because they helped me get to where I am today with the perspective that I have today. So just had
Yes,
to,
yes.
kind of
Of
acknowledge
course.
that.
And you and I have a lot of parallel right there on that. And I think maybe a lot of listeners can also relate to, I knew that, or something in me just knew at that time. So, that's why we say hindsight is 2020, but really actually calling it out and checking in with yourself and saying, oh yeah, there was that feeling. Now I can rely and lean on it in the future.
Exactly,
Yeah. Thanks for
exactly.
sharing that part. I appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. So to you, then the kind of process of creating, I think that it takes a team today to do everything that I'm doing. Team has been a part of my life for a number of years now, but we have been significantly growing the team to be able to support at the level that we want and need to support our clients in the online personal brand space. So I love kind of architecting the who, right? The collaboration that it takes to bring ideas to life. And I just feel super connected to the mission of everything that we're building. And so it feels like there's not enough hours in a day and enough kind of time and space to create it. But I love kind of the challenge and the opportunity to bring together diverse group of skill sets, from design and strategy and copy and development, all working together with everyone, kind of owning their individual piece of genius. Customer support, we're worldwide now. Before we were just US based, but we've got some really amazing team members in Philippines and Pakistan, and then across the country. And so it's just kind of a joy to create alongside everyone and with the support of everyone, every day now. And I would say I feel very connected to, I use the word architecture. To me, it really feels like I'm building something bigger than myself, more of a movement building around this vision. And it is very architectural to me, how it all fits together, how our offers and pathways of support for our clients fit together. We actually literally have this pyramid that I'll share with you, and we call it our ecosystem, the Firestarter ecosystem, with our software platform, Firestarter funnels at the bottom, and then, our done for you funnel and website builds and branding, and then our Firestarter brand accelerator, really deep immersive hands-on accelerator program, and then our ads management and ongoing support programs, and then our kind of VIP programs. And so it's cool how it kind of all fits together. And I'm just, we're always looking to reverse engineer how we can more deeply support our clients. So just as we were talking about, alignment never being this, final destination, building your personal brand never being this final destination, but similarly inside of the business, it's this continual, literally every single day, just continually kind of building and refining and iterating parts of it and bringing on the team that we need to support. And just, yeah, it's so that to me right now is kind of my creative outlet, my art, and just what I love doing.
And I love being part of the Firestarter community here. I love working with you and your team. And I think what you're saying here is really important because we're in a time where everything feels so, high pressure or also divided, and we're looking for community. And it really helps, especially I think with the creative process. A lot of people admire the results, but we don't really hear the process, or we really don't see it. And I really think, you've emphasized about building in public and how you really are out there doing your podcast, your movements, having your ideas, your identity really be at the forefront of everything for people to learn from, link arms, and build alongside with you. And I'm wondering, what does it actually feel like inside of you to build something that's visible while you're still becoming the person that's leading it? Like, do you ever have doubt, or like, how do you handle doubt when people are watching? What do you personally do?
I mean, I think we all, of course, do that old like imposter syndrome. I think that I'm a perfectionist, as I think many of us can relate to, and I have had to get comfortable with moving faster and being okay with things like launching and being put out there like a little less than perfect, right? To not, feel like if I'm doing a webinar or a podcast interview or, something that a reel that I post on Instagram, it's okay if it's not perfect, that it's part of the journey and that it's better to put something out there than nothing. And so I think that that's been one thing that I've just kind of had to get more comfortable with, and just working through visibility, right? And I think we've talked about this, how it's vulnerable to be visible, but it's also, we're our own worst critic. And I think we can get so in our heads about it. And even my journey right now is just to really move into a deeper level of comfort to be able to stand in front of a room, and just, talk and share and speak. And I think we're always just at whatever level you step into, those who we look to at the top, they're also working through their own, levels of discomfort and continually working through. So those voices don't go away. We just get better at, hearing them and taking action anyway. That's where I stand on it.
Yeah, I think it's a real important reminder for everyone to be able to see that. I think that, people can get lost and say, oh no, they've arrived, right? I always say that life is not like a plateau. It's always these ups and downs, and we're continually, striving for higher and then refining ourselves in different ways. And speaking of, doing deeper work, I hear that you're writing something new now. You're writing your book. And I'm wondering, like, what truth is asking to come through you that, maybe through the business alone, it didn't hold that space. And, maybe
Sure.
what parts scares you to say out loud, if you want to share here in the safe space with me?
Yeah, sure. This is like the 10th time. No, this is like officially like the third time that I've seriously embarked on a book project that I've never launched, right? So I feel like eventually I'll like come out with like 3 books of all the like initial like writings and everything. So, so working title is Caliber, and it really is this, blend of like my personal journey, my professional journey, my relationship with brand and identity and how it all fits together. And some of those experiences that we've talked about being on that path and just seeing alignment showing up, and the feelings of kind of the contrast between living out disconnected from alignment and then the sense of life opening up and things just having this very natural momentum and unfolding, being in that pathway of alignment. And I think also the standard, right? So it's Caliber for a reason, because I think part of my journey also has been stepping up to a higher standard for myself, believing that I am worthy of more in life than the path I had kind of relegated myself to, the future that I saw unfolding. And that shows up everywhere in life. The clients that we work with, we are very focused on high caliber premium clients and helping people establish, premium brand presences. And then it comes into play in building relationships and dating and just, how one presents in the world. And so for me, it's all these threads that connect together, and I'm not sure exactly the final form. I just know that I have always, for as long as I can remember, I used to write in my journal, back in junior high, high school, elementary school. I've always kind of felt compelled to take notes and share and kind of reflect back on my own lived experience. And I think that's ultimately why my career started in journalism. This kind of curiosity and desire to kind of capture things in the world and then make sense and reason of them through distilling into storytelling and narrative. And I have kind of seen my own life and pathway in a similar way, which is also why, Instagram is probably my favorite social media platform. Love-hate relationship with it, but I think the combination of just kind of like capturing and sharing that lived experience and trying to pair it back to the most authentic message with the hope that it can help someone else on their path.
Yeah, I see it like it's your legacy of what people are experiencing about you and your work, your presence, and leaving with that hope. I like how you said that. That means a lot. I know that you have directed films. I know that you've also, expressed yourself, and I noticed that they're films that have some kind of meaning and some impact. And so can you speak to that a little bit? Like just share, I know it's been a little bit a while, or maybe you started there, but I'd love to hear a little bit about that expression as well of you.
Sure. Yeah. So we actually share that background as well in production. And so many years our work was really focused in the filmmaking space, short form content for clients, as well as ended up co-producing and directing a documentary film called Starting at Zero for one of our foundation clients, Saul Zant's Charitable Foundation, about early childhood education and, how it is something that we really should be investing in as a country for our future. Our children are our future, and if we care about economic development and all those things, we should take our next generation, seriously. So it was a very meaningful project, and also so organic. A relationship that was built through a project we did with Harvard Graduate School of Education, and built a relationship with the foundation. Started out as a much smaller project. We were just going to kind of document Alabama's early childhood program because they were actually, fast fact, Alabama has consistently ranked with the #1 state pre-K program in the country.
Wow, I didn't know that.
You wouldn't necessarily,
realize,
our client was fascinated to learn more and to kind of share what they were doing. So that's where the project started. But then, like many good things in life, it led us to many other places. We ended up traveling all around the country, interviewing past governors, present governors, other politicians and leaders in the education space, and ultimately producing a documentary that was screened in theaters and things like that. It was also COVID, so it was very interesting to release a film theatrically in the middle of COVID and navigate online platforms when that was a new thing and everything like that. But very meaningful project. And I would say also kind of back to this impulse or just desire to kind of capture my story as I'm living it. I also kind of on the side always traveled with a camera, loved to travel, and carried my camera with me everywhere I went. So kind of intentionally took some solo trips to Iceland, Chile, and brought my camera with me and just kind of like documented the adventures. Funny story, actually, when my ex-husband proposed, it was a surprise to me. It was on our year anniversary, and I didn't say no. I said, I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say yes. And I booked a solo trip to Chile to, quote, think about it. And I brought my camera with me. And there's a video online
I'll
of
have
that
to check
trip.
it out.
So, just my little adventure there. But, I've always loved, I don't feel like I'm done with film. I think it's a really powerful medium. I think the combination of, and I love to edit. I just don't do it anymore because I just realized that I was never going to be the best editor, and I didn't want to spend my days, sitting on a computer in that way. But I think it's such a powerful medium for connecting, sharing authentic stories, creating impact, and just kind of activating something in people through a combination of visuals and music and pacing and scenes of our world and people and things in motion. So I see how it could come into play in different areas of what we're continuing to do. Just focusing on the foundation first.
Yes. And to me personally, I have a background in early childhood education, so that was really impressive to me. I feel like you and I have so many parallels that it's
I
just like you said,
know, I
it was just
know.
meant to be close and connected. And I'm, grateful again, like to be alongside in your journey, especially, you mentioned our Women in Power episodes and being with Inside Success TV and what's that has meant. And I'm sure you have your episode also where you answer this question, but I'd love to know, like, to you, really, what does it mean to be a woman in power, and what does power mean to you today, now, like through this journey, maybe compared to what you thought it meant 10 years ago and as you embarked on this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think power at its core means the ability to call your own shots in life, right? To be able to kind of have agency and define your own path, and to not have, material things really getting in the way of that. And so I think that's part of, my ambition as an entrepreneur, as a single mom, especially, and feeling that full responsibility is just wanting just to feel incredibly secure, about the path ahead, for me and my son, but also to kind of use it as a platform to empower other people to feel like they can have that own agency in life. I mean, no one gave me, no one gave you kind of like this special checkbox. Okay, like you have what it takes, you can be an entrepreneur. Like there's no writing in the sky, saying that one person has what it takes, one person doesn't. Sure, it's not for the faint of heart, and I don't think that it's probably a fit for everyone, but I think that the opportunity is there for the taking for so many people. If me, you, anyone in that series, those of us out there kind of putting ourselves out there, if we through our work can kind of give just a little inch of hope and sense of possibility for those who need it, then I think it would be worth it.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think that a lot of women, especially, are taught that power means proving themselves and, accolades or accomplishments. And I think that, the way I see you has also been similar to my journey. It's about getting that inner peace. I think that's really some of the stuff that I hear you saying about your choices and things like that. What were aligned with you finding in the way that was meaningful for you. And the alignment also could be equated to peace. And I would love to hear, the hope part and the peaceful part. And like, through that legacy that you're building, maybe more specifically, what do you feel that people, leave with? Not what they buy. They come to you. They want to be part of it, right? We're on that side of it, the practical side of it, but like the feeling side of it. If you can even dive deeper, maybe in relation to how you feel, how it feels for you to deliver those things, and then if how that could translate to the people who are coming to you for help and to an alignment in their business.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I feel like people don't come to us, quote, kind of for alignment, but that is, the journey and the pathway and the result. I think people come to us who, have kind of like a patchwork of things in different places. Maybe they're on a bunch of different tech platforms. They have things out there online that represent different chapters. Nothing's that cohesive. Maybe feeling kind of muddy about their offers, how things fit together, maybe underselling, undervaluing their worth, feeling just unclear on what to prioritize, how to fit it all together, how to deal with the tech, because as I always say, no one decides to build a personal brand or business or do anything online because they generally because they wanted to master funnels and marketing and messaging and all the tech stuff. It's because people wanted to make an impact, right? And then how to actually do that tends to involve needing to either figure out or get support with all those things I just mentioned. So that's where we really come in. And so often, people might come in the doorway of brand offers, tech systems, but when we're working with people at our deepest level, we find that especially that brand and identity work, we call it, identity is really the word that we use most, because it is this really, even though we're working on brand colors and logos and things like that, it's also who, as you said, who do you need to be and become to step into this future vision and next version of yourself. And as the positioning and messaging, and we're really positioning people to stand out as leaders, as market leaders. And as we're building all of that out and reflecting back, weaving together kind of their future vision, where they're going and where they've been and all that they're bringing to the table, and that's reflected back, and someone is kind of putting words to their experience and all the value that they have in a way that they maybe haven't been able to articulate in a way themselves with the kind of level of coherence themselves. It's powerful, and we see that it's this two-way street, as they're seeing themselves with this kind of like shiny new paint job. Nothing's changed. They're still the same person inside, but we've just kind of come in and helped polish them up and kind of present, in a way that really reflects everything that they're already bringing to the table. Then they're able to kind of like rise into this next level of identity and feel more confident. I mean, wouldn't you feel more confident if you had this like kind of beautiful, clearly articulated kind of brand presence messaging, and then, clearly articulated offers that fit together, where there's an ecosystem, kind of a pathway, a journey where customers can come in and be nurtured, and then ascend to higher levels of working with people, and then to have everything working together, on a cohesive tech platform, and to not be worrying, if someone purchases this, oh geez, do I have to like manually send it to them? Are they going to get the right link? Is Zapier going to connect with this, with that? So it's a cool process of identity up-leveling combined with just really kind of hands-on material support that we provide, and that we ultimately kind of hand over through the journey of working together.
Yeah, I think that's the part people really need to hear, is like how they come in and they feel seen, and you're helping them to realign to themselves. And there's a question I always have, which is, when did you know like you were finding your inner design, right? I heard you talk about the architectural part of it and things like that. And so through this whole path, like, was it in your childhood? Did you just always know it? Were you always kind of tapped into it? I'm sure it's still a discovery. I know for myself, it's always like, we go maybe off path and we're like, wait, come back to that point. So, but when did you know you had found your inner design?
Yeah, I would say a kind of two-part question, starting with the childhood. I didn't like set out to become an entrepreneur, but I realized looking back, my dad's an artist, and actually had a small fish business on the side. So he, kind of had an entrepreneurial, which enabled him to paint the rest of the week. He did it one day a week, and that, enabled him to have the flexibility to paint the rest of the week. So I had an entrepreneur in my own home, even though we didn't talk about it in those terms. It was just like, dad's doing this, dad's doing that. And then my mom did a variety of things over the years, but my parents were always around, so I think I grew up with that model of kind of having an alternate work life being my normal. It would have been much more foreign to me to leave college and go off into a 9-to-5 job, just because that wasn't what was modeled for me growing up. I always have felt a little different, felt like in high school and college, I was just always adventuring on my own. I've had great friendships, but at the same time, always feeling like I was kind of exploring on the horizon, leading in my own way, following my heart, following that sense of alignment, which is why when I started looking around in my marriage, why I felt so deeply disconnected from myself, because I always have had this strong inner compass and sense of connectivity with my path. Living in Maine when I was after college until I was 28, and then, in a split day realizing I'm going to move to Manhattan and live there for 5 years. And it was absolutely the right decision at the right time, even though on the outside it looked like a very whiplash. It was absolutely the right thing in my life, and I just felt like this very strong, pull, and followed it. It was the perfect thing. So just an example of, that kind of like sense of kind of like inner compass and alignment. I'll say when I kind of finding my, what are we calling, inner design. So as I moved into this newer chapter of the business, and the couple of years of kind of searching for my space in it, I think that it originally felt like I was developing the new parts of the business over here, and I had the original core business, Firestarter Interactive, over here. So it's kind of under Willa, my name over here, original business over here. And there was just this disconnect, and I couldn't figure out how it all fit together. I couldn't figure out how to present myself. It felt like I was showing up for clients over here, and then I was being this other person over here. And so there wasn't this level of congruency and coherence that I was ultimately searching for. And then it really started to snap into place when I realized, you know what, Firestarter is a pretty powerful brand that I started building in 2013 or 2014. It all started with a manifesto. I just had this name, this vision for what I wanted to create, and I had written a manifesto back in 2014 before it really was a company, before we had a full team, all of it. And so I really rooted back in that brand of Firestarter, and ultimately that brought that back in as the umbrella above everything else that we're doing, and then just began to look at the newer parts of the business. You know, the original core business is one pillar, and then the newer parts as just other pillars of the business, but all united under that brand Firestarter. And then it became this relationship between me, my personal presence, yet the bigger movement and the team, and the way that we engage with clients, under that kind of broader movement and brand Firestarter. So it's been a journey, but that was, I think, how I finally landed on my design that feels aligned, and the one that, now that I have that base architecture, is the one that I really want to continue to scale and grow.
I think that's so important also. Thank you for sharing it so openly and honestly, that you went through your own branding journey, and that definition, I think, is why people probably come to and feel and see that how you came to it through sincerity.
Yeah.
So
It's actually fascinating because I feel like we're starting to develop a little bit of a specialty. I was literally having this kind of conversation with a potential client this morning, who I'm actually going to meet this weekend, to just establish that in-person connection so that they have comfort that I'm a real person. But I feel like so many clients are coming to us with stepping into that next place. Like, they have been showing up in a certain way, but it's not telling the full story, right? They have built so much professionally, but there's like another layer. They've either like reconnected with faith and are bringing that into their work. Someone who's like a fractional CFO, and has built so impressively there, but he also has a healer identity, that he wants to bring into his work. A clinical, therapist, psychologist who also has all of this kind of like energy work and all these other layers to our work. So I think it is interesting. I feel like we're establishing a little bit of like a niche around kind of parallels to my own journey of weaving together the threads. And I will also say, I feel like in the brand space, and I'm sure, you've experienced this, there is so much noise about, niche down, just be one thing. And I feel like we are kind of like the pushback, or like the rebellion, or the counter to that.
Yeah, and I think that what you're really telling people here is that sometimes, the customer or the person outside, we can't see ourselves. And so you being able to go through the journey of you finding yourself, discovering yourself, and really seeing what was there, I think has given you a specific lens to see other people and be able to magnify to them what they're not able to reflect in themselves. I think that's really important. And I'm excited to be on that journey with you. And
Yeah, the permission to be complex and nuanced and human, right?
Yes, exactly, human. We do need to have that reference back to us in a lot of ways, a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I want to invite the listeners, the audience, in on this, is wherever you may be listening from, to just join Willa and myself, to take a full inhale, just take a nice big conscious breath with us. And a long exhale. And so sometimes that's just all we need in order to remember ourselves again. And I'm happy to be here right now with Willa, going on her journey of how she would find herself, remember herself, and how she's gone through all of this. Thank you, Willa, for sharing everything with us.
Yeah, thank you for opening up the space, Rubina. I love everything that you do as well.
Thanks. So Willa, more than how people can find you, I would like to ask, how can people really connect with you?
Sure. Well, I always love, hearing your stories of where you are, what you're looking to build. And, we at Firestarter are intentionally creating a community to support with that. So You can find me on Instagram. Send me a DM. I would love to hear from you. Just under my name at Willa Kammerer. That's Kammerer. I'm also on LinkedIn under my name. And then, Firestarter Funnels is our software platform. It's built on Go High Level. We really see it as the operating system for your personal brand business. So if you find yourself, building your brand and presence and business online and kind of getting caught up with the tech. Maybe you're on a bunch of platforms, or maybe you haven't started, but you want to start, but just feel kind of like overwhelmed by the tech. Would love to invite you. If you go to firestarterfunnels.com and scroll down, there's a page or a section of the page where you can book a call with our team to just, have a conversation about where you are and what might be a fit. But yeah, just send me a message. We always love hearing from you. And Rubina is on our platform as well, so maybe she can speak to it a little bit as well. But much more than a software platform, it's a community as well. We have multiple weekly support sessions. We have a community right there embedded in the platform where you can kind of engage, ask questions, be with other entrepreneurs on the journey. So the community piece of it is really strong for us, and just something that we're going to continue to keep growing.
Good, and I'll have all of Willa's links in our show notes here. And yes, I'm part of this community. It means a lot, a place that I can trust and send my team to as well to get everything, done for me, as my background is started in design. And so having that opportunity to be in a place where it's really aligned and then also really sees me for who I am as well.
I love that. I would also say the Firestarter podcast too. You have to check out Rubina's episode on the Firestarter podcast. So the firestarterpodcast.com is where you can see that.
Perfect. And we'll link all those for you guys. And I'd love to close the show just twinning with you.
Let me grab my hat. Here we go. Pink and black.
Yay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you again for being here. Absolutely. So lovely to speak with you again. And I look forward to connecting with you again in person soon.
Same. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. Always great to see you.
Likewise. If this conversation sparked something in you, I'm Rubina Chadha. This is Inner Design. Share this with one person who needs to hear it. That's how this grows, one real conversation at a time. Subscribe whenever you listen and find me at theinnerdesign.com, and I'll see you on the next one.